Hi everyone, welcome back to another Plant Chats. So today I want to talk about a project that I just started recently. Recently, I mean about over a week ago. So here I have a freshwater pond. As you can see, I have many different plants, and you probably might have already seen a few fish swimming about. Um, but yeah, I have recently put together this freshwater pond. I keep searching in here because, as you can see, there's so much algae. So I have this freshwater pond outdoors. A lot of these freshwater plants really love full sun. um, as you can see, it's outdoors. The setup is kind of wonky. Not wonky, but just not very sturdy, but it gets the job done, so it still works out well. um, so, right here I have the freshwater pond. I'm not even sure what size of fish tank this is. I don't know if it's around 50 gallons, maybe more. I can't tell. Maybe 40, I'm thinking. I can't think, but I'm actually thinking, even though I just started this pond, I'm actually already thinking about separating a few plants because, as you can see, it's very much overgrown already. Um, so I have quite a few different plants in here. One of my favorites is this lily. I don't know the species name, or like the kind of lily, because I know there's hardy lilies and there's another type of lily, but I can't remember their name right now. But yeah, I have lily pads here. These are really pretty. These are the whole reason I wanted to start a pond in the first place. I really love lily pads. And as you can see, I also have these like elongated lily pads here. They're really cool. I'm really excited to see these grow more. Oh wow, look at this algae. So yeah, I'm having a problem right now with algae. As you can see, this tank is experiencing what's called an algae bloom. And algae blooms occur whenever the conditions are excellent for growth. Wow, look at this long string of algae. So the algae blooms occur when there's conditions that benefit the organism. So for example, this fish tank here is sitting in, well, not in full sun because, well, right now it's like 2 p.m. The sun isn't hitting it, but it does get lots of morning sun. So the morning sun is not as aggressive as the sun during this time is, per se, but yeah, it gets morning sun, and as you can see, the plants have been loving it so far. I'm also very surprised because, maybe except for this one, but the other plants don't seem to be yellowing at all. Well, besides this, they don't seem to be yellowing from the sun at all. Because usually when you add other plants in these conditions where they get lots of sun, they yellow or even burn. But these aquatic plants are doing very well, and I'm so happy to see that. Oh, a little fishy. But yeah, sorry, I digress. So yeah, I'm experiencing an algae bloom right now. This occurs under the right conditions. So this is a new tank. Um, there's but there's already lots of nutrients in the water. That's because I already bought these plants from established ponds. So those established ponds already have lots of beneficial bacteria, lots of healthy bacteria that help benefit the plants and, well, just life growing in the tank. So yeah, the algae bloom is feeding off of those nutrients. It's also getting lots of sunlight here, where it can photosynthesize very quickly, produce lots of sugars, and reproduce. So the algae blooms here are here. The algae bloom in this tank is crazy, and also it's getting, well, since it's getting lots of sunlight here, the water's very warm. So the conditions in this tank are just the recipe for an algae bloom, which is why I'm pretty worried because, although algae can be beneficial, when you have too much, it's just the opposite. It's actually not beneficial. It can damage the whole pond. It can hurt the whole pond because algae, when there's too much, it can deplete the oxygen levels in the water. So it'll take up all the oxygen from all the other plants and whatnot. And well, yeah, it'll just make the water very nasty, very murky. So well, the water's already kind of murky, which I'm trying to work on, but since I'm experiencing this algae bloom, it's quite hard. But the water's also a little bit murky because one of the potted plants, there's one underwater. I don't know if you can see this one underwater down there, that potted plant. Some of the soil came out of the pot, so it made the whole tank murky, which is why I think the algae are also thriving. Yeah, I have little fishies in here too, as you can see. I have those in here to eat any mosquito larvae that might grow here, in the tank. We don't want any mosquitoes here, so they'll just eat up all the larvae. So yeah, I have. The one thing I would say though is I don't know the names of these plants here. So like I mentioned, I have lily pads. I have one underwater. This one down there. I'm not sure what the name is for that one either. I apologize. But here, this is one of my favorites. This is a water hyacinth, and as you can see, it has little stolons here. Stolons are just like extensions of the stems where other pups or like baby plants will grow. So this is an extension of the stem, and a pup grew at the end. So that's called a stolon, I believe. Yeah, I think it's a stolon. But as you can see, this water hyacinth is a floating plant. So if I lift it up, look at those long roots and the stolons with the pups hanging off them. So look at these extremely long roots. This water hyacinth is a floating plant. And I also have another floating plant here, the water lettuce. And it looks exactly like lettuce. Same thing here, stolons with pups at the end. Very cool. I love the way they look. I also wanted to talk about the adaptations of these aquatic plants. So, for example, this water lettuce, when we look at it, the texture of the leaves looks a lot different than this water hyacinth, right? So this water lettuce looks fuzzy, and this water hyacinth is very, what's the word? I don't want to say shiny. But, well, yeah, you can just tell they're a lot different. Oh, look, here's a little pollinator friend. I'm not going to disturb him. Sorry, but yeah, the leaves of the water lettuce are very fuzzy. So this is an adaptation that the plant evolved with. And that's because these plants, the water lettuce, even though they live in water, they don't like getting their leaves wet, which is pretty like ironic, right? But yeah, the water lettuce just like to get their feet wet, just like these other plants I have sticking out of the water. They don't like to be fully submerged underwater. They just like to have their feet wet or their roots. So like the thing with the water lettuce or any of the floating plants, if their leaves are fully submerged in the water, they can actually die. So they just want their roots in the water, as you can see, very long roots. So yeah, they grow their roots very long, and the leaves grow very fast as well. So these floating plants grow extremely fast. And I also wanted to talk about why that is. So in their natural habitat, where these floating plants come from, they're actually not from California. They're actually very invasive, so I wouldn't obviously like go release them into like lakes or anything. They're invasive. They're gonna grow very fast and take away from the other organisms in ecosystems. So invasive species are just a big no. We want to get rid of them as much as we can, because then they go on to kill wildlife native to the ecosystems, and well, it's just very tragic. So we don't want that. But yeah, anyways, like I was saying, the environments that these floating plants come from actually have very limited resources. Obviously, water is not one of them. So these plants sit in water all day, so they have no lack of water. But in their native environments, these plants lack something else, something that you wouldn't really think of. No, it's not sunlight. No, it's not nutrients. They're actually lacking space in their native environments. So as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, these plants grow very fast, and that's for a good reason. That's because since they have limited space, these plants want to claim as much space as they can before other inhabitants come and take it from them. So they want to make as much with what they have. So their resource for space is very limited because they come from wetlands. There's not lots of wetlands throughout the world, so they have very limited space. They want to grow as quickly as possible. They don't just grow from the plants, like I said earlier, they have very long roots, as you can see, very long. So this is actually for good reason too. They want long roots so they can absorb as much water as possible. Again, to reclaim as much of the resources as they have available to them. So their competitive nature is actually, I would say, is one of the main reasons for such fast growth. Well, obviously, alongside the access to all these perfect conditions and whatnot. Oh wow, look at this algae. Yeah, anyways, so I just wanted to talk about that. I need to separate this soon because I have too many plants growing and they're all eventually going to compete for resources, but I don't want that to happen. I want them each to shine in their own light individually, literally, and well, you know. But yeah, like this one, for example, this elongated lily is already getting kind of choked up. I can't really see many of the leaves that it's throwing out, which is a bummer because they're very pretty. You see, they're already getting choked up. So that's something I don't want. I'm gonna have to do something very soon because they're growing very fast. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about these aquatic plants or bog plants. The bog plants are the ones out here sitting outside of water as well. So bog plants don't like to be fully submerged. They enjoy having their shoots out of the water, which is like the shoots are like the stems and leaves and all that. I also wanted to talk about the lilies. So the lilies actually have their roots and stems underwater. The only thing they have outside of the water are their leaves. So their leaves, the lily pads here, they sit outside of water. They get the full sun and they love and they grow very fast. So they let's talk about how their leaves are able to float. So besides like the surface area, like the large leaves, they are also able to float because their stems, you can see them down here, their stems are actually full of air. So these aquatic plants, like I said earlier, are not lacking water whatsoever. They grow in water, so they're not missing that. So their stems are actually, not actually, they have lots of air spaces. So regular plants, like I mentioned last time in my last video when we talked about plant tissues and plant cells, there's actually air spaces in between the ground tissue of some plants. Like the specific cell type are the parenchyma cells. So there's air spaces in between the parenchyma cells, and that's how we can tell. Well, that's one of the ways we can tell that they're parenchyma. But if you were to get a cross-section of the lily stem, you would see a very porous stem. So lots of holes And that's because the stems are full of air. The air not only helps with or like giving them access to oxygen and gases important for survival, but it helps them become buoyant, which is very cool, right? I really love lilies. Like I think they're awesome, honestly. Oh, a little wasp. Don't want to bother him. But yeah, lilies are very cool. The same thing for these floating plants, honestly. The water lettuce have very spongy leaves, and the water hyacinths have these big bulbs here at their bases. They have similar composition to the stems of the lilies. They're very porous, like I mentioned earlier, and are full of gases essential for survival of these plants. Because gas exchange in organisms actually helps lots with respiration and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to make a quick video talking about these plants and highlighting some really cool things about them. So yeah, I don't know the names of these tall ones. I'm sorry, I apologize. I actually think this is a Kana lily, but I can be wrong. I'm not 1,000% sure. But these are water hyacinths, very pretty. These are water lettuce. These are lily pads, and I'm not sure what these are called either. I really like these, and as you can tell, I have little floating plants here. I've heard those grow very quickly and spread very fast as well. I also have fishies in here. They're called mosquito fish, and well, that's because they eat the mosquito larvae. And like I mentioned earlier, I have lots of algae growing in here, which is what I'm trying to get rid of, because even though a little bit of algae is okay, you don't want it to get too full. The algae will outcompete the other plants for resources and take away all their nutrients, their oxygen, their sunlight, all factors essential for the survival of these plants. So I'm trying my best to get rid of some of this algae. It's very hard because it grows very fast. Like I mentioned earlier, it's in the perfect conditions for growth. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll keep you updated on this project. Like I mentioned earlier, I probably am gonna start splitting up some of these plants since they're growing way too fast and taking up too much space. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. Have an amazing day.